Have you ever gotten ripped off? Like someone kind of sold you the world and be like, oh, this thing is so great. And then you get it and then it turns out to be garbage. Well, that happened to me. And the worst part was, okay, I'll say the whole story. Watch to the very end. Don't lie to your clients. Please don't do it. It's a bad idea. There is so much marketing advice out there. There's a lot of great marketing advice, great advertising advice, and there's really bad marketing advice that you should not follow. The tricky thing is that some of the bad advice is very tempting to do because it's easier and it seems like a shortcut. Like you can make yourself look a certain way without doing any of the work that actually makes you that type of person or that type of product. And it seems like a shortcut, but it's not a shortcut. I found a photographer using a photo of an album that we designed to sell their own albums, like on a quote. Yeah, it's a long story of how we actually found out about this, but it is crazy. So like Ali actually had designed like this kind of elaborate crest to put on our studio album. And so we spent a lot of money printing the album, getting a full album, photographing it, and we found a photographer, ripped it off our Instagram and used it for their own business. Another example was this was firsthand experience with myself. I was helping out another photographer and they said that they are a film photographer. And I guess they were maybe transitioning out of film or didn't want to shoot as much film anymore or something. And they told me, hey, this bride really likes film. So why don't you go over there and load the film in front of them? At least she thinks that we're shooting film. We did not shoot very much film at all that day. I was watching a video of a photographer on YouTube, and they were saying you should have a thing on your website called travel dates. And on the travel dates, you should have these exotic places around the world where it would seem like you're traveling, right? Like if you put that on your website, those are the places you're going. Well, they were like, no, you don't actually have to be going there. You're just kind of manifesting it. So just like put these travel dates on there and then people might be like, oh, I'm there too. Let's book this shoot. And the last example of this that I've seen most recently, I've seen more and more photographers posting on social media that they are featured in a certain magazine. And I was like, wow, that's so impressive. And so I looked into this magazine that they were featured in, a very well-known magazine. And when I looked into it, I realized that they weren't being featured as a full article. They were being featured in the advertising section. And like, there's a difference between being featured in a magazine and paying to be in a magazine. That's not being featured. That's advertising. And so why do I say these things? So I say them because they're like kind of pet peeves of mine? No, because I think that these kind of marketing schemes and tricks may seem like a good thing in the moment and they may seem like a good shortcut, but in the long term will actually be detrimental to your business. There's two ways that this is most detrimental to your business. The first way is that even though it seems like a good idea to look better than you are or portray yourself being featured in a magazine that you're not really featured in, all of these options, traveling to a place that you're not really traveling to. The problem is that even though it seems like a good idea in the moment, the reality is the rubber always meets the road. I don't know if that's the right analogy, when the client actually books you. Because if you set up these expectations of who you are and the product that you are, when it's not really that true to life, they will see the gap when they actually hire you. They will see the gap of the photos. They will see behind something that's not actually true. And And ultimately, that is going to be detrimental to you because they're going to come in and they have these very high expectations and realize that maybe you're not just like quite there yet. And will ultimately, it'll be counterproductive to what you're actually doing and the type of clients that you actually need at this level of your business. The other way that it's really detrimental is your reputation. And that's where I'm going to get into the story of where I got ripped off. And this, I think, is one of the most, it's the thing that I care about most in my business. And that is, what will people say about me? What will the referrals, not just like about me, but about our business, how they're treated, what their expectations were, how I sold to them versus what they actually got. And it's really important to me that people never feel tricked, that people know exactly what they're getting into, exactly what they should expect, and not only just get that, but get more. Your reputation is so important because when people have bad experiences, they don't always forget. And now goes into our story. So about a few years ago, Allie and I were spending a lot of time in the kind of the back end of our business, growing our business, getting it to the next level. We were like, okay, we want to both do this full time. Like, what can we do? So we were investing time and money into some coaching, some types of education and courses and things. And so Allie was looking at this one particular book of a very well-known person in the wedding industry, like at the top, like this very well-known person. And so Allie found this book on their website and ordered it, which seems like a very simple and straightforward thing, right? You like have a education book on your website, you sell it, you buy it, you get the information, done, right? It should be pretty simple and straightforward. We waited. Days went by, some weeks went by. So we emailed them and said like, hey, we bought this book, but we haven't had a tracking number or anything. Like, is it coming? Is it printing? Like kind of what's going on? So this is the first place that it went wrong. We got a response back and said, oh, this is an ebook. This isn't a physical book. Now, I went to school for design. So I fully understand mocking up things. Even for ebooks, you kind of make it as a book, whatever. There was no indication that this was an ebook. It looked like a book. There was a mock-up, there were photos of it. There was like specific design with the front cover, the side, like it made it look like a book. And that's what we were expecting, something physical to get. And I don't think that they did it on purpose, but this is something to think about. Like, make sure you're not tricking your clients. It's not only important to be truthful, but it's also important to do the due diligence to make sure that you're being clear to your clients so that they know what they're expecting. So if you're selling an ebook, you should say, this is an ebook. The second thing that went wrong is, now Allie looked at the book and then she showed it to me and she said, Luke, is there something wrong here? And I started reading. Now, I'm not what you would call a spelling bee champion. I remember very clearly in the 5th grade that my name was always on the board for spelling corrections in our little spelling book. I'm not scarred. It's fine. But I read that book and very quickly I started to notice the amount of typos, not just like spelling mistakes, like they didn't know how to spell it and they spelled it wrong, but just like obvious type, like keyboard mistakes. It was embarrassing and it was bad for how many typos there were in this book. The attention to detail was not there. And that message that it told me was being thorough and just doing a spell check in this thing was less important than making the money from this book. It seemed like they just like typed this thing as fast as humanly possible, put it on their website and hit for sale. And that did not make me feel like a very valued customer. The third place that they went wrong was that we read the whole ebook, we got to the end, and we looked at each other. I looked at Allie, she looked at me, and we were like, that's it? Like, that's all the information we got? There were whole spreads that were just photos of their work. There was a big spread and just a quote and just empty space for writing. There was a severe lack of content for what was promised in the actual advertising. There was no depth, there was no substance, and the promise to it ahead of time was like, look at me, I'm a big deal in the wedding industry, and here's my secrets. There weren't any secrets in there. And number 4, this is the worst part. This is the worst part, everyone. And possibly the most embarrassing part of this whole thing was that this book, I mean ebook, cost us $550. So why does this matter? Why do I tell you all these stories and all these examples of people doing marketing and advertising very poorly? That's because it has been years since this happened, and I can remember it clear as day. In fact, I'm making a YouTube video about it, and I can still kind of like feel my frustration and annoyance that I felt when we first got this thing. What people remember more than a good experience is a bad experience, especially when they feel a bit tricked, especially when they feel a bit lied to. People don't forget that. So don't lie to your clients.